Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
If it wasn't already clear, it's official. We are so freaking back. What a weekend of college football, plus just 3 more sleeps until we've got the NFL back on our screens. Locked and loaded here as we welcome you into this Monday edition of Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. As always, Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We're live from Las Vegas at Circa Resort and Casino. Hope you're not laboring too much this Labor Day. What? Is that too cliche for you?
That's good. It's funny.
All right. We're laboring, I guess, technically. We do have
This
to
is
work.
hardly a labor when you love what you do.
I wanted to say off the top here real quickly because obviously you have this on display. I feel like that's probably a good segue for a couple of our great guests that we have on deck for the program today. So producer Brian Ortega, if you would, why don't you hit us with the rundown?
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the rundown.
Guests on deck. The one and only Greg Peterson, as well as Josh Applebaum. And I bring up the book because Josh Applebaum, author of the NFL Sharp Betting Playbook, we're going to have him on in hour 2. Talk through, yes, some NFL Week 1 lines he is already locked and loaded with. Also, the college football Monday night game we have coming up today, UNC and TCU. With Greg, locked and loaded with a lot of baseball. So we have 4 games in action already, worth noting here real quickly. Miami took some money against Washington, closed pick'em. They're down 2-0 in the top of the 4th right now. Cleveland, Boston. Guardians took some play as well from plus 140 down to plus 125 at close. They are down 2-0 as well. Mets up on the Tigers 2-1. Reds up 2-0 on the Blue Jays. But we will have, 6 more games in the afternoon and evening when he is on with us. A couple more coming up in next segment that we'll hit briefly as well.
Yep, doing the Lord's work, still grinding through the baseball season. Some of us are, some of us aren't. But you really got to love it when you got a Bailey Ober start against the Chicago White Sox at 11:10 a.m. on a Monday when Bill Belichick's about to coach against the furry Josh Hoover and the TCU Horned Frogs.
You gotta stop calling
So
him that.
very excited to hear what Greg's got to say as he continues to plow through the Major League Baseball season. We also get to start from the Angels and Kukoc coming up here in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. NFL Week 1, though, as we mentioned, is here. Kind of snuck up on me, to be honest with you. Thursday Night Football will be kicking off the season. Eagles, Cowboys. Dallas did work out a contract extension with a key defensive player, by the way. Just not the one we were thinking all summer. Dron Bland got a deal. We'll discuss that, all the Micah Parsons stuff, because we weren't with you on Friday together. 7.5 that spread on Thursday night, though.
Yeah, finally, you can wake me up, right? We talked about this. I've been correct, but I've largely poo-pooed a lot of contract stuff. Finally, one actually comes to a point where, hey, I'm not wrong. He got the contract before the season started. It just wasn't with the team that we expected,
It just was not
right?
in Dallas after all. So
we'll see what the ramifications are. But to your point, we are at week 1, which means decisions need to be made on this show about contest entries. So very much looking forward to the push and pull that will occur over the next 4 days before we ultimately decide what we're going to do.
The Survivor debate, Circa Millions with the 5 ATS picks we have to make. Yes, it is upcoming. And while it's week 1 in the NFL, week 1 of college football is just about in the books. We mentioned one more game still to come today. But what a wild weekend it was, especially in the marquee games. Moment did look too big for Arch at the shoe. Seminoles stunned the Tide. LSU going all in on week 1, and it paid off for Brian Kelly. And then, of course, last night, Miami with the big win, 27-24 over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, which was an irritating result for your girl because I was 4-2 with the official plays going into yesterday, had Notre Dame money line. And obviously that doesn't come to fruition. Still a profitable week so far. We'll see if we can finish that up tonight. But what did you make? Let's start with last night, the Sunday night result.
I was somewhat surprised by Notre Dame's game plan early. I mean, I guess, if you want to get your redshirt freshmen some easy completions to kind of just get them a little greased up and confident, I understand it to an extent, but average depth of target was floating around 4 yards for the entire game. Didn't really let him rip it until the end of the game, where he was completing some shots downfield. When we say shots, like he was a total Stormy from throws that were 10 or more yards downfield combined. He ended up going 3 of 6. CJ Carr did. Like, that's not bad when you're, of course, including the 2 shots he took for 20 or more yards that he completed. I was very surprised ultimately by the game plan. Jeremiah Love didn't touch the ball really until the second half. And then when they started to kind of open up the offense, that's when you really started to see things move for their offense. And on the flip side, because I don't want to take anything from Miami, I was pleasantly surprised, and I don't think we should be because it's Mario Cristobal and his teams generally are good at this. The Miami offensive line was kicking ass for a while, and that was really surprising because I thought Notre Dame's 2 biggest strengths were the offensive line and the defensive line, but I don't think there's really an argument. I thought Miami, at the end of the day, won both battles defensively and offensively in the trenches. I
think that was the biggest disappointment for me watching Notre Dame, is I thought that their defense was going to come out and be strong, but I guess to your point, we shouldn't have been surprised that Mario Cristobal, who puts so much time, effort, and emphasis in building up the offensive line, that they were good, and they performed well, as did Carson Beck, who obviously a lot of people had questions about, but coming off of the season he had at Georgia, and I know there were some struggles during that one stretch of 3, 4, or 5 games in the middle to latter of the season before he got injured and was done, that he did have a lot of drops along the way last season as well. To see some of those receivers go up and get it for him, I thought was notable. So again, 27-24, that result there. Clemson, despite the loss to LSU, still the favorite in the ACC at plus 150, but Miami goes from around plus 450 to plus 280 now in that second spot with that win.
I don't know about that with Clemson, as we're kind of looking at the weekend that was. And look, maybe we can talk about the fact that LSU invested, quite literally, in their defense in the offseason, and that really seemed to pay off some dividends in this game because it completely kept them in it when Nussmeier and this offense weren't really at least performing up to snuff. By the way, a quick aside, Brian Kelly showing up in a very big way where he tries to throw a bubble screen right before halftime. It gets snuffed out, and then he was going to kick a shorter field goal and ultimately gets nothing out of it. I don't know what some of the decision-making was, but I will say this. This is one of the things, and I had said this to a couple of people in different spots, and I think I'd mentioned it to you as well. The one team that I had started to cool on from a national title standpoint was Clemson, the more you looked into it. And this, I think, was a point of evidence. Cade Klubnik was beating up on bad teams throughout the entire regular season last year. The times in which he played teams that were on par, maybe even better than Clemson, didn't really show up. And again, here in this game, 6.1 yards per attempt, completes just 50% of his passes. PFF gives him a 55.5 overall passing grade. Threw into the interception as well. I was not very impressed with Klubnik and by extension this offense. And you do wonder, in this ACC that all of a sudden looks deeper, right? With Miami, Florida State. We'll see what those all are. Don't want to exclude Louisville either, SMU. Yeah. Maybe that we have overvalued Clemson status. I say they collectively, not all of you, but their status is the favorite in this conference.
And we will reflect more on a lot of what we saw from this past weekend, pushing it forward. Coming up in the next segment, we'll do you approve this move, looking at some of the immediate line moves you've already seen from Sunday to today, as well as overreactions or maybe proper reactions, and call me crazy but a little bit later on in the show. But I do want these last few minutes of our opening to get into this Monday Night Football, college football game we have on deck with TCU and North Carolina. Monday Night Football, something Bill Belichick is very familiar with, although this will be the first time we see him on the sidelines as a college football coach. He was never even an assistant, and now he's the head man over there with the Tar Heels. This is a game that we've seen a 6-point swing on the spread from when this originally opened in whatever it was, January, from North Carolina being a 3.5-point home favorite to now today a 3.5-point home dog. Total in this one moved a little bit, but not much, 55.5 where we're at today. And I, more than anything, am just pumped to see what we are going to get from North Carolina. They are one of the biggest mysteries in the sport for me this year. So what version of this Tar Heels team do we see?
I'm more curious. I think it's to that extent, but I am very curious to see Bill Belichick's fingerprints on this team, especially on defense. Yes. We have seen Bill Belichick, even at the tail end of his career, he was not great as a front office guy. He could not draft worth I was about to say a terrible word. He could not draft worth anything at the tail end of his career, and really it was like a longer time than that. But he could still scheme with the best of them defensively, and I still think he has that. And so to take on this offense and Josh Hoover, who in his 2 years from 2023 where he took over to last year as well, statistically improving across the board for the most part, cutting down on the turnover-worthy plays, increasing the yards per attempt, all of these things, I'm very curious to see if because there's a lot of turnover on this roster, if he can actually just come out there and say, no, like I'm just like a good old-fashioned football coach, and I can just scheme something up that's going to confuse this simplistic college offense.
And what I'll say about that, too, is, say what you want about Bill Belichick, right? He's a very good defensive coach. And this is a team, when you look roster-wise, that their secondary should be pretty good. And if you look at some of the numbers and things that Josh Hoover has struggled against, at least if you go to the PFF numbers, single high looks. Steve Belichick, his son, rather, who's the defensive coordinator, big single high guy, a lot of man-to-man coverage. So what is that going to look like for Josh Hoover with these wide receivers who you lost your top guys last year. Will they win those one-on-one battles that you need to go up and get it for your quarterback? I could see this defense coming out aggressive at home. And then conversely, with TCU's defense, I think they could be a little bit underrated as well. They were really good in coverage last year when you look at some of those PFF grades. Yep. So I do lean toward the under here. I blocked that in as my best bet for the night, 55.5. And now we're seeing those go away as I look at the market and the things lighten up here, 54.5s more and more everywhere across the board.
Yeah. I'm also, obviously, because I don't have a dog in this fight. I think you have a couple of angles on it, but this is
I lean North Carolina, and my best bet of the day is the under. Yeah.
So I'm very much on a fact-finding mission here. I'm also just really curious to see Belichick with a quarterback like Gio Lopez, who's a pretty effective runner. If you look at some of the numbers, what he's going to be, obviously very good in terms of touchdown interception ratio, taking care of the football, playing within the scheme of an offense, but that as well, and how he wants to handle his offense. And because you have to change if you're going to be a coach in college football, using a little bit more athleticism at the quarterback position and how that's going to factor into an offense where we haven't really seen that from Belichick at his time in the pros, I'm very curious to see how this offense looks, obviously.
Well, and obviously, with the talent they lost too, right? Omari Hampton is a Charger now, and that wide receiver room is completely retooled as well. So not only are you working in this new quarterback who's dual threat and something you're not necessarily used to having or utilizing, but will the talent around him get elevated as well? I don't know.
And there's some fours starting to pop up on the screen, so we'll see if maybe we get to 4 by the time we get to kickoff tonight.
All right, we got to step aside. We're going to take our first time out of the day here on Money Moves. When we come back, some quick thoughts on 3 MLB games that are going to begin, followed by, do you approve this move? College football, week 2 lines already shifting gears here. We'll be right back on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Back here on Money Moves, Stormy, Buonantony, JVT. I'm just going to own up to this one. I'm a failure.
This seems a little strong. But
looking at the MLB slate today, I thought that the handful of games started at 11:15, where the broadcast was going to begin. It was 11:10. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, everyone out there. Do you like anything in the Angels-Astros game? Come on.
I think it's going to get off to
it's live, but you can get in there.
I really like the no run in the top half of the first inning.
You're the worst.
Really like that. I do think the Angels are kind of on fumes now at this point, I will say, for that team, as a team that I watch somewhat regularly. The goal now, I don't think it's for the team because they don't really care too much. The goal now, though, is to get to 72 wins because that's the win total, right? 71.5. But they've lost a little bit of fight. They're still exactly what they've been. So the fact that in this spot, market bet against them up to $1.60, I think was the closing price here. I think it makes a ton of sense that you saw some spots reach that high. Not a lot of places moved a ton. Circa just closed 5 cents in favor of Houston. But the whole point here being that I think the market's pushing this in the right direction. Angels are definitely a team that are on fumes, trying to play out the rest of the string, while the Houston Astros still trying to stave off the Mariners, win their division with sights set on bigger things. So made a lot of sense in this spot, given the way this team's been playing, that the market bet them up as high as 160.
Sonny Gray and the Cardinals took a little bit of money here as well, from -150 out to -162. I see here at close total down from 8 to 7.5 against Luis Morales and the A's. I don't have anything in that game, though. Did you?
No, but I will point out, as we are watching right now, that the Guardians have just played at 3 here in the top of the second inning. So all of a sudden, the AL East, we should point, in a big picture here, don't look now, but the Yankees are all of a sudden just 3 games back. Red Sox are only 3.5. Toronto just at the top, trying to hold these teams off the rest of the way. But, it's kind of like the like in dramatic movies where you're looking at the heart monitor and all of a sudden you get like that faint, like, poop, like, hey, might have a little bit of life here. The Blue Jays, there is still plenty of time for them to blow this and for a team like the Yankees or the Red Sox to get back into this thing. So just look out after the Yankees had their big winning streak snapped on Sunday night against the White Sox. We'll see if that's going to be the case, and they start up with Houston coming up here tomorrow.
Toronto, by the way, in action right now, down 2-0 to the Reds. So we'll keep an eye on some of these scores as we go throughout the course of the day. But as you mentioned off the top of the show, heavy college football day today. We had the opening lines come out yesterday for week 2, and a lot of them are already on the move. So let's break it all down with Do You Approve this move?
Odds move up, odds move down. Let's see where the odds are moving today in Do You Approve This Move?
Lots of spreads and totals on the move. And let's start real quickly with the game coming up on Friday. JMU at Louisville. 2-point swing there. Louisville from 16.5 down to 14.5 against the Dukes here. Cardinals explosive start to the season, 51-17 in that win against one of the directional Kentuckys. Did not cover the 38.5, however. What do you think?
No real thought. I would assume you're going to grab 16.5, but it's still somewhat telling that we're over 14, right? That the market is just hitting across the board with a key number and a hook. So not a very strong belief, at least at this point right now, that James Madison's going to stay inside of those key numbers because the market's willingly let those sit out there.
Cyhawk coming at us Saturday from Ames. Iowa State out from 2.5 to 3.5. We're over that key number.
So this was going to be one of the things we're going to try to debut, like something new in my notebook, right, where I've just written down a bunch of different things and I want to just like kind of talk them out. This is going to be one of them, but I saw it here, so I figured we could do it here. I think I was pretty low on Iowa State. They go out there in the game in Ireland. They perform very well. Then they come back in the rough spot, right? Oh, my God, this is terrible. You win the game against K-State. Now you're going to come back home against South Dakota. This is a brutal situation. Let's put 14.5 up there. Blew the doors off South Dakota. I think that there's a shot that this team might be just as good as they were last year. And look, they made it to the Big 12 championship game. And yes, they lost in a very big fashion to Arizona State, but I feel like maybe I've underrated this team, and they deserve to be up to 3.5-point favorites. Iowa did not look good.
No, I was going to say, this will be their biggest test so far defensively.
Yes.
So we'll see what that looks like. But as high as I was on Mark Gronowski and how excited as I was, the pass game was worse than what we've even seen in the past.
Yep.
He had 44 yards through the air. The run game was good. Offensive line was stout, as you would expect from an Iowa team. But the slow start against Albany is not what you want.
It's not. And here's the thing, because you can't make the argument, oh, they weren't showing anything. You could still throw for over 100 yards and not show anything. Yeah. That was just, yet again, abysmal quarterback play, which you just kind of write that off, or you write that down, and you're like, all right, we'll track this coming up. But that to me, I think this is a little bit more about Iowa State, but Iowa as well. But watch out, the Cyclones in the Big 12 that all of a sudden doesn't look as dangerous. Let's do it. I think this team's pretty good.
Surprised at all to see the market move against SMU here from 4-point favorites down to 3 against Baylor, who had a tough day against Auburn.
Hard to say. I am in agreement with this. I'm kind of with the side that you're kind of referring to here, which is a little surprise. I mean, look, it's grabbing 4-3, just like we talked about the Louisville game. Still a key number hanging out there, so it's not like there's a big push for Baylor. But I did not like Baylor in that game against Auburn. I bet them. I liked them before. But that performance story, defensively, they looked very bad. Couldn't stop Jackson Arnold, who all of a sudden looks like one of the best athletes on the planet. The special teams issues where you give up a kick return for a touchdown as well. It just looked like a somewhat poorly coached effort for Baylor, specifically the defense, though. You would think with Aranda that was going to be better, and it wasn't. And now you get SMU here, which can be pretty explosive. I know East Texas A&M, it was 42-13. Much of that damage was done in the fourth quarter where this game was all over with. I am surprised that the market pushed in the direction of Baylor.
A few SEC games here. Ole Miss getting played at Kentucky, out from 9 to 10.5-point favorites. Meanwhile, market moving against a couple of bigger favorites in Texas A&M and Kentucky. So, in Texas A&M, Texas A&M went from 32.5 to 29.5 against Utah State. I doubled up in my notes here. Sorry.
That's okay. Got that one wrong over the weekend, by the way, right? Utah State and UTEP. Holy smokes, Utah State really in control of that the whole time. I don't know if that's so much a pro-Utah State move as it is, hey, that's a big number for a team that has nothing to play for in Texas A&M. But I will say, I am somewhat surprised that the market is moving in favor of Kentucky against Ole Miss. I mean, this is a spot where you'd think Ole Miss would be able to get it done. Kentucky doesn't cover against Toledo over the weekend, doesn't look overtly impressive. I'll be interested to see what this Ole Miss number gets to.
That ended up being a play I added on Friday was Toledo plus the points there. What do you think about Fresno State? So they're taking on an Oregon State team I just saw this past week. OSU goes from 3-point favorites down to 2. Do you think that's warranted?
I do, and you and I were talking about this before the show started. You were on the sidelines for this game. Don't say you didn't watch it. We all did. I did too. But you and I were discussing two key things for Oregon State. Big injury along the offensive line. And is Malik Murphy healthy after he got dinged up at the end of that game by running into an official to the point where they quit? Like, they quit. I'm sorry, but Bray quit. They punted the ball away down 2 scorers. They just ran the ball out when they got the ball back. Are they healthy along the offensive line? Is he healthy? And if that's the case, this could be really bad for Oregon State.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that results a little bit later, and a few things with Malik Murphy and the Oregon State Beavers I think that are worth noting. How about Arizona State, Mississippi State? I will be on the sidelines for this game coming up this weekend. ASU out from 9.5-point favorite at open down to 7.5. So the home team in Starkville getting a little love.
Okay, first off, for anybody out there, I was asked 3 times. I'm not Stormy's secretary, okay? Yes, I know what game she's probably going to be on for the week, but you don't have to ask me every single time. I was asked it 3 times yesterday.
Poor thing. What a hard life.
Yes, it was. I was like, you know what? She's going to Starkville. All right. So with this one, I will say I don't have a strong opinion, but I heard from some very smart people that are very pro Mississippi State, and that you might be on the sidelines for an upset.
Ooh. Okay.
So I don't take that for what you will. I am not somebody who has a strong opinion on this game whatsoever, but some smarter people than I in the realm of college football have voiced that Mississippi State's going to be pretty live in this game.
I was talking to a couple SEC people as well, just in regards to the win total being 3.5, and they said Jeff Levy in year 2. Like, I think this could be a little bit better. They've got some pieces, so we'll get into that, especially after Arizona State didn't look the way that we know they all wanted to. Lots of penalties in that opener against NAU. Michigan, Oklahoma. Oklahoma out from 3.5 to 6-point favorites in this spot.
Look, Michigan didn't look really dominant against New Mexico. The fact they let the Lobos drive down and score. Did you see the touchdown to the Lobos?
Yeah.
Drew up? Sick. Absolutely great. I wanted to play Oklahoma here when I saw the schedule, but man, 6? Yeah, it's a little too red for my blood.
UCLA, after getting dogged by Utah, out from 1.5-point favorites to 2 at UNLV. Tulsa, New Mexico State, 1.5 to 3.5 there. San Diego State, Washington State. Wazoo getting played against by the Aztecs after the big win against Stony Brook.
Well, I think this is more about, because you were, wrapping up your game on Saturday night. Washington State, life or death with Idaho over the weekend, where you need a game-winning drive late to get it done. The way I put this when I was talking about this the other day, yesterday, when all these numbers were coming out, you can say what you want about Stony Brook. San Diego State and Washington State both had opponents where they should have taken care of their business. One of them did, and that was the Aztecs. And I have a strong confidence that they'll be able to do it again here. I don't want to overreact too much, but that was not good from Washington State.
What did I tell you about San Diego State when you were asking me about the game? Should they do it?
Yeah.
Yes. Will they? I don't know. But the fact that they did win 42-0 as an 18.5-point favorite, I thought was significant. And by the way, everybody, with college football officially underway, the NFL season kicking off this week. Reminder, now is the time to lock in your edge with a VSiN Pro subscription. Sign up today. You get both of our betting guides, your playbooks for the whole season, plus daily best bets from our experts. DraftKings and Circa betting splits, 24/7 video replays on the VSiN Watch app, and a whole lot more. VSiN.com/subscribe. Get started for just $9.99 or save 50% with an annual plan. We're shifting gears to MLB next. VSiN Zone, Greg Peterson joining us coming up on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you haven't checked out Edge Boost, ladies and gentlemen, what are you doing? Your first ever bank account built for bettors, ensuring any and all gambling transactions are approved. Check this out. No usage fees, no minimums. You get cash back rewards, plus 100% approval for all betting deposits. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet and use our promo code MONEY. Deposit $25. Edge Boost will match that deposit for you. Again, edgeboost.bet. Use that code MONEY alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. Quick update here. Mets, by the way, put up a 4 4 spot in the top of the 4th against the Tigers, pulling away there a little bit. And we got some breaking news in the NFL. Apparently the back tightness was real for Micah Parsons. Adam Schefter reporting Parsons has been dealing with an L4, L5 facet joint sprain in his back, and he may take an epidural injection prior to Sunday's game with the Lions. Apparently the Cowboys had him on a 5-day anti-inflammatory corticosteroid and prednisone to help him recover from the tightness. And the last little note here, probably the most notable, one source to Schefter said it's still uncertain whether or not we will see Micah Parsons on the field Sunday against the Lions. But again, if he does, might take an epidural. Who better to break this down with, as well as the MLB slate? Greg Peterson, who we welcome in on the Progressive guest line, who was born 45 minutes away from Green Bay and is a part owner. The Peterson family has shares. How do you feel about this news from Micah Parsons, my friend?
This is the long-term play right here. When I picked the Packers in the VSiN betting guide to win the Super Bowl, that was before knowing that Micah Parsons was going to be out there. So, hey, if Micah Parsons is not playing this game, nothing lost. But, I mean, this is a long-term play here. You make sure that the guy is right, and you do not want to mess with back issues, whether you're a sports athlete, whether you're dealing with someone in just regular everyday life, because, I mean, back issues can slow you down if you're coaching like your kid's softball team or something like that. So I think that precaution is the best approach for the Packers. Still sounds like it's going to be relatively solid that he's going to be out there, but you know what? You knew that something might be a little bit up with the Dallas Cowboys trading him, but overall, still a very good move for the Packers, and still feel bullish about them on Sunday against the Lions.
Yep, 2.5-point spread there still. We'll see if this news affects the market. 46.5 starting to appear at a couple of shops, so maybe that's some of the impact. All right, Greg, let's talk a little bit about some baseball here. You're still doing the Lord's work. You're still grinding through it, despite the fact that the better sports, college football and the NFL, have begun. What are we doing with the Chicago Cubs coming up here? Spencer Strider opposes them. Colin Ray gets to start for the Cubbies.
Myself and Scott Seidenberg here at the network always have the Sunday night fade, where if you're playing on Sunday night baseball, you have to travel on Monday. Typically, it's a bad spot. This is an extra bad spot because typically, if you're traveling on Sunday night baseball, you're playing like a 7:05 p.m. Eastern, a 6:05 p.m. Eastern time game. No, you're having to play an afternoon game if you're the Atlanta Braves, and Spencer Strider has not been good recently. He's given up at least 5 runs in 3 out of his last 4 games. Now, Colin Ray's a little bit more of a pitcher contact guy for the Cubs. He's only getting about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings this season, but you know what? We've got the wind blowing in here at Wrigley. Was looking like it was going to be like 8 to 10 miles per hour, looking more like it's going to be like 7 to 8 miles per hour, but still should be enough to be able to help out Colin Ray a little bit in this spot. I do think that for the Braves, a little bit of a tight turnaround, that's going to be hurting them. And for the Chicago Cubs, they just have left a million men on base. If you watch that series against the Rockies, they were making good contact, they were moving the line, but it felt like they just couldn't really drive them home. I do think that there's some positivity coming for this Cubs lineup that struggled since the All-Star break, so took a shot on the Cubs on the money line. And with that wind blowing in, I was able to get an 8 under. If you're getting a 7.5, it's a little bit more of a roll of the dice, but if you had to play it right now, still would be looking at the under.
Yeah, based on what you were saying there, I was going to say, makes sense why we've seen some movement to the under, more 7.5s out there. That is a number you will not often see at Coors Field, where we have a total of 11.5 with the Rockies and Giants going today. San Francisco, minus 144 road favorite. Colorado, plus 118 at home. What were you looking at here?
And I am going to be looking at that over because you've got a pair of guys that, well, they're not really having great years. Chase Solander on the road has actually been pretty respectable. A sub-4 ERA on the road. He has not been able to pitch at Coors Field this year. A 9.88 home ERA with 2.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings. And for the Giants, their offensive numbers get suppressed by the fact that they play at one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all of baseball. If you look at their road numbers, it's not like they're the best offense in all of baseball, but more respectable, around 4.4, 4.5 runs per game. And Kai-Wei Tang, who's going to be getting the start here for the Giants, he's rocking an ERA above an 8.50. Even if you look at his numbers at AAA Sacramento, was not going deep into games. So for the Giants, you almost have to assume that this is going to be a pseudo bullpen game for them. Now, the Giants bullpen, overall number 2 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Keep in mind that was with Camilo Tobel for much of the year, Tyler Rogers for much of the year, Eric Miller. Miller's on the injured list. The first 2 guys all got traded at the deadline, so not quite the same bullpen. So I do think that you get a higher scoring game here, and I just have a tough time trusting in Dollander at home. On the road, I probably would be willing to look at him a little bit more, but with this being a game in Coors Field where he's really struggled, do like the Giants here on the run line to go along with that over.
All right, what about Seattle and Tampa Bay? Mariners have been pretty inconsistent for the most part. They opened up as $1.20 favorites in some spots, Greg. We've seen a flip of favorites. What do we make of Shane Baz now getting some respect to the total of 8.5?
I think that this is a correct move. If you're still able to find the Rays more around even money, I'd be looking there. I think that we're starting to get to a little bit of a point of no return as I was able to grab plus money overnight, but I still do like this total over, mainly because Luis Castillo and his home and road splits. You mentioned Seattle being inconsistent. One thing that has been consistent is that Luis Castillo has been great for Seattle at home, not so great on the road. A 5.02 road ERA with Seattle. They're a little bit of a boomer bust team as well, like Cal Raleigh and Eugenio Suarez. Between the two of them, 92 home runs. But Suarez, ever since getting traded to Seattle, hitting right around about a 200. For Cal Raleigh, he's either home run or bust, it feels like, over the last few weeks as well. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, Junior Caminero, Brandon Lauer, solid in that lineup. You've got Chandler Simpson, who's one of the best base stealers that you're going to find in all of baseball. And for the Mariners, surprisingly, Andres Munoz has 7 blown saves this year as well. So even if they enter into that 9th inning with a 1-run lead, and even though Munoz has that low ERA, he has had the propensity to blow some games. We saw that over the weekend. So I do like the Rays here. Like I said, would like to see a little bit of a better number. We're starting to get to a point of no return, but here at that 8.5, I felt like the total should have been a little bit north of 9. So I'm going to be looking at the over.
Greg Peterson, VSiN betting analyst, host of the Baseball Betting Show. Follow him on X at @GUnit_81, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Let's go to D-backs Rangers. Arizona had a pretty nice last week, took 2 games from Brew Crew before 2 of 3 against the Dodgers. Did fall short on Sunday, 5-4 in LA, but now open up a 3-game set with the Rangers. Ryan Nelson going for Arizona at home. Patrick Corbin, who coming off a great 8-inning start his last time out, but what will he do today? Plus 128 road dogs there. Arizona minus 157 home favorites. Total here 9.
And I was able to get a plus 140 overnight on the Rangers. That has dried up a little bit, so would need to get this number back to a plus 140 to be able to look at the money line. But what I'm really looking at here is the total. This opens up at a 9.5, and I did grab that under overnight. I still like it here at 9, though. Ryan Nelson has been really good for the Arizona Diamondbacks. For lack of a better term, he's just not beating himself. He's only giving up right around 2.5 walks, 1 home run per 9 innings. He's not going to go out there and get a bunch of strikeouts, but now he goes up against the Texas Rangers lineup that, if you actually look since the beginning of the month of July, they're averaging in the neighborhood of 5.2 to 5.3 runs per game. That's a top 4 mark in all of baseball. But now Corey Seager is out. You're dealing with the Marcus Semien injuries. Jake Berger has been in and out of the lineup the last few weeks. So this is a lineup that's dealing with a ton of attrition, but the bullpen has still been solid. Top 8 team in terms of bullpen. Right? Had issues in the back half of the game yesterday against the A's, but they were up 8-0. You're throwing out there more of your ancillary guys, so you don't feel too bad about that. And for this Arizona Diamondbacks lineup, just not quite the same as it was towards the beginning part of the season. If you look at the overall season numbers, top 7 team in terms of runs per game, but as we know, Suarez gets traded to the Seattle Mariners. You trade away Josh Naylor as well at the trade deadline, so they're dealing with that a little bit. They've been having a few young guys in and out of the lineup as well. So I look at the sign total, even with Patrick Corbin having some recent struggles, and think that this is going to be a lower scoring game. I do like that total under.
All right, Greg, last 90 seconds. NFL Week 1 is here. What do you like?
Well, I certainly still am in on the Green Bay Packers with regards to that game, even though we've got the Micah Parsons news right now. So we're still going to be looking to ride with that. And then if you're taking a look at a few of these underdogs, I do think that a few of them can be a little bit plucky. Now that we're starting to see a 3.5 pop onto the board for the Carolina Panthers, looking there. I don't know if I could quite get there on a 3, but with the Jacksonville Jaguars, week number 1 of a new regime, Trevor Lawrence throughout his career has just been so inconsistent. I'm looking at the Panthers after they built some really good upward momentum towards the back half of the season last year. If you're able to get that hook on the 3, I think that that's a solid play.
Greg Peterson, we appreciate the time. Thanks, buddy.
Always appreciate it. Thank you.
And yeah, it is nice when you can get that over the key number, 3.5. Jags at home in that one. A little bit of juice if you want to take the points with Carolina minus 120. What's up?
I'm just a little confused because the Miami Dolphins just flipped the favorites. Do you remember when we were told that Daniel Jones was an upgrade? Remember when we were told, see, look, the market moved to 1.5, 2 in favor of Indianapolis. Market's telling you he's better. It's weird. It's weird.
You're so humble with your takes.
I'm just confused.
On that one.
Just asking.
Okay, we got to step aside here real quickly on Money Moves, but when we come back, closing out hour one with Call Me Crazy, but it is an overreaction Monday, rightfully so. We'll get to it all on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
With contest season upon us, if you're looking for a proxy, we've got you covered with Winner Circle Proxy. You can join the world's biggest football contest with one trip to Vegas before the season starts on Thursday, trusted by thousands of players over the last 9 seasons. Winner Circle Proxy has helped clients win over $9.3 million just in the last 2 years alone. Learn more about using a trusted proxy at winnercircleproxy.com/VSiN. That's winnercircleproxy.com/VSIN.
Put on your tinfoil hats.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The whole world gone crazy.
For Call Me Crazy, but...
Okay, it's week 1, ladies and gentlemen, and I am already feeling crazy reflecting on what we just saw in college football this past weekend. And I'm going to kick us off with one that is a game we didn't really touch on much earlier for this purpose. Yep. Call me crazy, but maybe Alabama just isn't Alabama anymore. And I have been a staunch defender of Kalen DeBoer. I was a big believer in the talent that they had coming into this season. I felt like they should have a chip on their shoulder after everything last year, especially in this week 1 game with Castellanos making all of the comments he does that Nick Saban can't save you anymore, where apparently he called his shot and was right. Kalen DeBoer, since going 4-0 to start last season and beating then number 2 ranked Georgia, 4-5 in games against FBS opponents. He's 1-4 as a double-digit favorite away from Tuscaloosa. Nick Saban in 17 years was 63-4 in those such games. And the thing about Saturday for me, JVT, is it's not just that they lost, it's how they lost, particularly getting dogged at the line of scrimmage. I thought Florida State had a chance to cover. I did not think that it would play out anything close to what we saw on Saturday. Yeah,
this is one where you and I, in the big picture, had some positive thoughts on Alabama. But in terms of this game itself, didn't really project anything for it. Wanted to see what it was going to be like. And sure enough, you're right. I mean, the bullying at the line of scrimmage, the inability at the second level to get some of these stops, I thought it was incredible. We'll see if this is going to carry on as you move forward. But I thought this was a great comp for some that brought this up. It was reminiscent of the Vandy game from last year, where it's just this team's just running this offense, and you have to be able to stop it. And they just had nothing. And I'm glad you brought it up. The fact that this is now a growing sample size is the troubling part. If this was a one-off, all right, fine. But the fact that we're now starting to see more and more points of evidence to the fact that DeBoer's teams might not be up to snuff in some of these big matchups, that is troubling.
They looked soft, and every time they cut away to Kalen DeBoer, I was like, he looks lost. What is happening right now?
That's a big word.
I had over 9.5 wins. I have them in the college football betting guide as my national champion. Yep. Thought they were a true contender. This is not the way you want to start.
I did not have them as my national champion.
But also, how much more seriously do you take Florida State now?
Sure. I mean, and by the way, I had Alabama losing in the national championship game, so I'm not that great. No, I'm right. You're right. That's why I brought it up when we talked about this earlier. I think after this weekend, you look at the ACC quite differently in the ability of these teams, and we have seen it all the time. You can make the turnaround quickly in college football. You can go from a 2-win team to a playoff team just like that if you invest in the right pieces, grab the right guy. Castellanos looks like a guy who fits this system a lot better than Bill O'Brien's kind of pro-style-esque offense. All of those things come together for a team that might be pretty dangerous for the most part. I think that's really worth looking at, the ACC as a whole.
All right, where do you want to go next?
All right, so we're letting you carry the water for this segment for the most part. So we'll stay in the SEC. Call me crazy, but LSU is the best team in the SEC. Tell me why I'm wrong. I mean, at this point right now, you look at the SEC as a whole. I'm sorry, jury's still out on quarterback play for Georgia. You can miss me with the Marshall win. We'll see what that actually looks like at quarterback when we move into some real big boy games. But that defense, talking about investing and turning things around quickly, they invested in the defense in the offseason. The secondary looks much better. The defense as a whole looks much better. Nussmeier, I wasn't in love with the performance. Really low average depth of target, really low yards per attempt, like really let his wide receivers do a lot of the work there. But I think you can open up a little bit more. Stormy, the offensive line for cycling bodies in and out looked like it started to figure things out. They were running the ball relatively well. I think Kelly, the demise of Kelly, I think, is often, a little overstated. He's still a good coach. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, if you look at it, if they are one of the better at defenses, God forbid the best defense in the SEC, why can't this team be the best team in the conference?
Why can't they be the best team in the country?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the way I was kind of looking at it. You look at how they've been offensively the last few years, averaging over 36 points per game, top 7 in the country over the course of that time. It's their defense that's held them back. Ranked 52nd in the country in that time. The last 3 national championship winners, you look at Ohio State, Michigan, and Georgia, they were all top 5 defenses. If LSU can do that, why can't they?
And to add to that point really quick, no, actually, I'm going to save this because this is part of my notes that I wanted to ask you about, so we'll save it.
I do, just to segue off of that, if we're talking, maybe tomorrow we do like letdowns and look-aheads. They've got Louisiana Tech this week, 38.5-point favorites. Coming off of that win, and then Florida on the horizon.
We talked about this 2 weeks ago, right? Like, that was the spot. The La Tech Bulldogs, no matter what the result of this game was going to be, that looked like a letdown because of everything they were going to put into that game. And then they won.
Yep. Okay, you're going to like this next one. Call me crazy, but Devin Dampier is what we thought he was. Yep. You kidding me? If you weren't able to watch that game, you didn't stay up, those of you on the East Coast. He put on a show. 21 to 25 passing, over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, added another 87 yards in his score on the ground. You saw it from the first drive. First quarter, they outgained UCLA 140 yards to 23. I got so excited for what Utah's going to be coming off of that win.
So I'm going to call you crazy here.
Really?
Because he's better than what we thought he was. Come on
let's
now.
Go.
Seriously.
Behind a good offensive line, too. A great offensive line.
Look, there is always going to be, with a dual-threat quarterback that is somewhat small, the worry of him staying healthy. We will see if that is going to be the case. But the only thing I can do right now is accept Utah as it is. And I was having this thought, and I was going to put it as part of the notes, but since you were going to bring this up, I think it's a better way to do it. And I asked this question to a couple of people I was hanging out with yesterday. What if Utah's just really bleeping good?
I think they are.
What if they are the head and shoulders best team in the Big 12, maybe outside of Iowa State? What if they're just way better than we expected them to be? And Devin Dampier is, I don't know if he'll win the Heisman. We've got the ticket on him. We're hoping that he might be able to at least maybe be a finalist, whatever it is. But if you finally have a quarterback of this level running this offense and this defense is as good as we expect it to be, this looks like a team that is going to be one of the best in the country.
And listen, the odds in the Big 12 didn't shrink much. We talked about them at 6-1, plus 450 now, and they are the standalone favorite. But that's still a very good price. And I know that we think there's a lot of potential for parity in this conference, but Utah looks like they are the real deal.
Yep.
Speaking of Heisman, you got to pick here.
Jalen Daniels is a Heisman contender. Call me crazy. 60-1. Look, I get it. Fresno State and Weber, was it, that they just beat? I understand totally that we haven't really done anything, but this is something we hit on after week 1, and we'll bring it up again in the context of the Big 12 as a whole, but generally with Kansas. If Jalen Daniels is going to be healthy, he fits that offense perfectly.
That's what it comes down to.
And this offense can be explosive. I love Lance Leopold. He's a very good coach. The way this thing is schemed, the misdirection, the ability to put up big numbers. He just, I think, has the potential profile of a quarterback that could put up some bonkers numbers. Now, they need to win games, which I don't know if they'll be able to totally do. I think the jury's still out for them as well to use that term for the defense. Hasn't really been tested too much. But I'll say this. Fresno State went out there this last weekend and ran all over Georgia Southern. They didn't do anything against Kansas, so we at least know that Kansas defensively is a relatively strong team, at least through 2 games. So look out. Jalen Daniels in a Heisman profile, race that really looks kind of murky now after some poor quarterback play from some of the contenders over the weekend. Daniels could do it.
Maybe I picked the wrong team from the Sunflower State to back, the way that Kansas State has. That defense is brutal.
They got to win.
They got to win, but did you see it? And if you were to tell me, honestly, at this point, Avery Johnson had 6 total touchdowns, no picks, 68% completions. And I would have thought they were off to a roaring start. Yeah. And yet they very well should be 0-2 right now, yet they got a dub this weekend. Okay, call me crazy, but Arch might not see a defense that good the rest of the season. All respect to Georgia and that opponent that they're going to face a little bit later on. But what Matt Patricia dialed up with that Ohio State defense against Arch Manning, making the young guy look confused in the shoe, hostile environment, I think Arch is going to be fine. Like, there were a lot of reasons to believe that our thought process on, hey, what is this going to look like? And there's a lot more questions than there are with answers with Arch Manning. I felt good in our handicap when it came to that. I think as the season goes on, he'll progress and he'll get better. But this is an NFL defensive coordinator that you just faced that tricked you up, and I don't think he's going to face that type of a test again.
So I tend to agree with you, but I will say there was a lot in that game.
The off-target throws were problematic.
Yes, like that's not a symptom of playing a really good defense. I kept saying if I had watched Arch go out there and start slinging it and just throwing in completions and there's pass breakups and he's getting confused on coverages and throwing interceptions, then I could kind of accept that on the road. But when he's oddly sidearming throws, putting them in the dirt, when he's got guys running wide open on drag routes, things like that, that to me was, all right, I don't think that's him, but that is still very worrisome when you watch that.
You know what else was worrisome? Just Sark in general after the game talking about, I wish that we would have had, more situations where we could give Arch the opportunity to run. Well, that's actually your job. You could have done that.
Caller, and it's a one-score game.
You very well, so that to me, I felt like for as much as you can put on Arch, there was a lot that you can put on Sark as well for the way things played out in that game on both sides of the ball. So that's calling me crazy, but we still have a lot more reaction to come. When we come back, however, looking ahead to week 1 in the NFL, we do have another update on Micah Parsons for anyone who missed us in the last segment. Apparently the back injury was real, and we will discuss that a little bit more. Juwan Jennings also back on the field for the 49ers and some week 1 lines on the move. We'll hit it all next when we kick off hour 2 of Money Moves.